then I found out that he had a girlfriend. What inspired you to create your YouTube channel? Constantly tell me like, oh, you're stupid, you will never achieve anything. Celebrity crush growing up. She's trying to hit me with a trash bag. I lost all the weight that I gained. How do I recover from a traumatic experience? Hi my best friends, and welcome back to my sleepover. I feel like that clap was a little too loud, but today I'm finally keeping a promise that I made to you guys probably 2 months ago to make a Q&A, and I pretty much think that all of you have really lost hope in me at this point and no one's gonna watch this video, but at least I'm gonna have fun, and it's always better late than never. So the first question is from, I'm not sure if it's a good idea for me to try to pronounce the usernames. I love you guys, but I feel like I'm just gonna butcher them so bad. So I'm kind of worried about pronouncing any of these. But basically the question says, what inspired you to create your YouTube channel? Honestly, I've always loved YouTube. Even before I knew what YouTube was or what YouTubers actually were, I made YouTube videos without really like posting them on YouTube or knowing what I was even making. I would be that friend in a friend group that would film everything. Every time me and my friends would go out somewhere, I would be making a vlog about it and filming it. I feel really sad that like all of those videos are gone because they used to be on my like very first touchscreen phone. I used to also make my friends pretend we're having a talk show. That was one of my favorite things to do. Then at some point when I was in 7th grade, my friend introduced me to something that was called YouTubers. I had no idea what a YouTuber even was. I only used YouTube to listen to songs, specifically Selena Gomez songs back then. But my friend was obsessed with PewDiePie and Dan and Phil at that point. And then my life was completely changed forever. I remember watching those videos and how much joy that brought me. I fell in love with YouTube, and ever since then I wanted to be a YouTuber, but I was way too scared that people at my school would judge me, so I didn't really do anything about it until I switched to a different school. That was when I first started my channel. I really wanted it to be basically like Dan is Not on Fire and some DIY My Life as Ava, Alicia Marie type content. And if you guys want to see my old videos, like the very first videos that I made back in 2016, I'd be so happy to react to them, and I feel like my boyfriend would have a lot of fun roasting me for them. So definitely let me know in the comments if you guys would want that. And then I got scared about people finding out about it in my new school where I had transferred, so I was like, never mind, not this time. And then finally, my senior year, I went through a pretty rough breakup, and every time I wanted to start my YouTube channel, I felt like my boyfriend at the time would judge me. So when that breakup happened, I was pretty much like, well, I've always wanted to do this and nothing is really holding me back at this point. And that's pretty much like the story of how it all started. I know it's like really long and stuff, but that's pretty much the thing. And I really hope that maybe one day I'll be able to actually be a full-time YouTuber and earn something from it, because right now I'm not really getting anything. Yeah. Okay, the next question is kind of in the same spirit, and the question says, what made you decide to start your YouTube channel? I kind of already answered that, but the second part is, and also could you tell us more about your experience at school? I love your videos, by the way. Thank you so much. I put a lot of effort into my videos and it makes me really happy when someone likes them. Sometimes I really forget that there's real people watching them, and that is just so cool. A part of why I love YouTube so much is also kind of answering the question of like, tell us more about your experience at school, which is I started in a post-Soviet school, which is a pretty bad place. Like, it's a pretty nightmarish type of school. I wouldn't really wish it upon anyone. Basically everyone hates you unless your parents know the teachers or are friends with teachers, or you're like a relative of one of the teachers. Unless you have that, you're pretty much no one and you're gonna get bad grades no matter how hard you try, because your parents don't really bribe the teachers. No critical thinking encouraged whatsoever, pretty much trying to control everything that you think and everything that you do, no room for expression. So me being someone who likes to do things my way and doesn't like to do things as I'm told, I was having a really bad time. Also, I'm like mixed nationality and I was having a really hard time getting along with the kids at my school as well, since some things I just really couldn't relate to. I didn't watch the same shows as them because they like to watch a lot of like local TV, so I felt like whenever they would talk, talk, I just couldn't get along with them, and it was really hard for me to make friends. In middle school, I had 3 friends which were fangirls. They were amazing, they had the same interests as me. We were all obsessed over Supernatural, Vampire Diaries, Doctor Who, and all of those TV shows. It was really fun. But as time kind of like kept going and going in middle school, I felt like I had less and less friends, and the teachers were really mean to me. They would constantly tell me like, oh, you're stupid, you will never achieve anything. I felt really sad and like everything was so unfair. So I would always just turn to YouTube. YouTubers and YouTube fan communities really made me feel like I had a space where I had friends and a space where I belonged. I also used to write a blog on the platform that was called We Heart It, and they took it down and I never got to download my articles from there, and now they're just completely wiped off the face of the internet. But I met so many amazing people on that website and basically just had internet friends. I was incredibly sad with horrible self-esteem, which I wouldn't blame myself, being in an environment where everyone told me that I was just complete trash and I would never amount to anything. Then at some point I got a scholarship to go to this private American school. So I dropped everything, changed schools, hoping that it would be the time of my life and everything would be like the movies. Everything was not like the movies, at least the first semester. I found it really hard to make friends again because I had social anxiety from my previous school and everyone just being so low-key, even like passively mean. Because I remember like girls would constantly like backhandedly make fun of me having basically like bigger chest. They would come up to me and be like, oh my god, like let me hug you. Oh wait, like what size is that? What's your bra size? It's probably like really big. Can I take pictures with them? And that felt so weird because I didn't really know what to say to them. Or there were girls that were like, oh my god, I love you so much, and then like would hit you and stuff, and I would be like what are you doing? That just seems so weird to come up to someone and be like, oh I love you, you're so fun, and like grab their hair and like yank it. I feel like I should have told someone, but the way that all of those things happened were like so confusing, and every time I would try to like say something back, the teachers, since they were like related to those kids, would make it as if it's my fault. So I would always just be in the wrong, and I would also think that I was in the wrong until I grew up and I was like, wait a second, like that was actually not okay what they were doing. I even remember this girl, one time we were on a field trip and she took like a trash bag and she was like in the seat behind me and she was like bumping that against my head, and I was like, hey, like can you stop? And she's like, oh no, I'm just playing. And I'm like, okay, but like I don't like it. So she kept doing it until I stood up and tried to like take it from her, and then she like made a scene and the teacher came up to me. She was like, oh my god, like why are you so aggressive? Like what is wrong with you? You're such an aggressive kid. And I'm like, she's trying to hit me with a trash bag and she wouldn't stop when I tell her, so I'm taking it away. And she's like, no, like you're being aggressive, and just basically making everything my fault again. So middle school was really horrible and it gave me social anxiety from those experiences. So when I transferred to a new school when I was going into high school, it was really hard for me to make friends. But then I started seeing school counselor, and by the end of that year, honestly, I lost all the weight that I gained when I was pretty much miserable, when I had a binge eating problem because middle school just would make me miserable and food was the only thing that made me happy when I came home. I lost all the weight. I actually started believing in myself. My grades went from failing to perfect A's and I made so many friends. So then it was kind of like better, but it was always a mix because at some point I realized that friends that I made were pretty toxic and I decided to change my friend group. For the most part, it was a really fun time for me, and compared to middle school was completely amazing. The next question is, how do I recover from a traumatic experience and heal emotionally? And 3 people actually have liked this one. I don't know exactly what has happened in your life and I'm sorry that you had to go through it. And if you're dealing with trauma, the best thing that you can do is go to a therapist because it's a pretty serious matter. I'll share some advice, but remember that this is not professional advice in any way. So take what resonates and reach out to a professional for support if you can. The first thing that I think is really helpful is to process your feelings. You really need to let your feelings out because sometimes after something traumatic happens, we kind of have a tendency to block that and try not to feel it. But a really important part is to give yourself space to actually feel what you're feeling. This can look like journaling. This can look like talking to yourself on photo booth. That's something that I've done whenever I felt like something really hard was happening in my life. That really helped me release my feelings and get some clarity on them. Your goal is like to release your emotions instead of bottling them up. It can take some time, and then once you're ready, then you can start understanding them and reframing them. You will need to analyze the thought patterns that come up. Some that are common with those experiences would be, it was my fault, I deserved this, I'm a horrible person, because this happened, I am now unworthy. I don't know exactly what happened, but whatever happened is not your fault and it says nothing about your worth. You can try to reframe that belief by using positive affirmations. You can also use a guide that identifies cognitive distortions, which cognitive distortions are distorted ways of thinking that are not true. There's basically like this sheet right here that at some point a therapist also gave me, and it really helped me with my social anxiety, so I think it can be pretty helpful for you as well. Whatever happened, don't let that moment define your life. Try to focus instead on what you learned, or maybe how you can even use this situation to help other people. That can really help transmute this negative situation into something positive. But it's really important to pay attention if you see any of these signs occurring consistently: flashbacks of the situation, nightmares or night terrors, intrusive thoughts, constant low mood, going out of your way to avoid the reminders of the experience, and difficulty concentrating. If you have any of these symptoms for longer than a month, then you might be dealing with PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder. In that case, please don't ignore these symptoms, because speaking as a psychology graduate, PTSD gets worse when it's untreated. Definitely the best thing that you can do is reach out to a mental health professional, someone who is actually trained and educated in helping you overcome these things. You guys have heard me talk about BetterHelp in my previous videos. They're also sponsoring this video, but even if they weren't, I would definitely still be recommending them because of how good, how easy, and how convenient their service is to use. When signing up, you fill out a questionnaire and you get matched with a therapist in as little as a couple of days, which is really useful because you don't have to look for a therapist that specializes in what you need and go through an extensive search to find the right match. The platform does it for you, and if you feel like you really don't feel right with your match, you can switch pretty easily with no extra cost, which saves you a lot of time. It's also really convenient that they offer you different methods of talking with your therapists, with either text sessions, video calls, or just voice call sessions. BetterHelp also carefully vets their therapists to make sure that they're well qualified, and they have a 4.5-star rating on Trustpilot, so it's a convenient and trustworthy platform. And if you would like to try it out, you can get 10% off by using my link, which is betterhelp.com/angelgray. So the next question is, who is your role model? How do you feel about girls looking up to social media stars? Love you. I love you too. That is so nice. I still can't believe that you guys are actually writing me questions. I think that if we're talking about social media people or famous people, my role model would not be a celebrity because I don't really trust celebrities. That being said, I feel like one of my role models is My Life as Ava, for sure. She managed to stay relevant even after the whole like DIY saturation era passed, which I think is really cool and really hard. And also because she travels a lot and she has had so many incredible experiences, like modeling that she's doing right now, making music, traveling the world, photography. I feel like that's really cool, and that's something that I really want to do in my life, just basically have a lot of cool experiences. Another person that I really look up to is this YouTuber called Unjaded Jade. I feel like she has an amazing positive energy, and I really like that at some point she got rejected from her dream university that she's always wanted to go to, which was Oxford, and instead of letting that define her life, she took a gap year, and she also went to a really cool experimental university where each year you study in a different country. And I feel like, again, I like that quality of pretty much not letting circumstances define you and being able to make something great out of a bad situation. And also definitely Mel Robbins, for sure. I feel like her story is incredibly inspiring. Definitely let me know your guys' role models in the comments. But the second part of the question, how do you feel about girls looking up to social media stars? I feel like you really need to put in efforts to choose positive role models, because I think when you're younger, it's easy to see someone and think that that person is so successful when in reality a lot of things that they're doing might be faked. For example, bikini shots are fake, a lot of photos are incredibly edited, and I think when you're younger you kind of don't think about that. So my answer to this question is basically that I think it's a good thing as long as you really think critically about who you're looking up to. Like, also, I'm sorry if the lighting is shifting throughout this video because the sun is going down. The next question is, are you going to make a Maddy Perez series? I really want to, but HBO is really being a pain right now because they're copywriting every single video that contains even a snippet from Euphoria, which is really crazy to me because there are so many commentary videos on Euphoria, and commentary is actually considered fair use, so it shouldn't be copyrighted. And honestly, I really don't understand what they're doing, and it's so frustrating to me. Okay, next question is, what is your favorite confidence tip? My favorite confidence tip is actually something that I like to do with everything, which is going back to something's basic definition. Basic definition of confidence is that confidence means just being sure of something. Being confident in yourself just means being sure of yourself, and you become sure of something when you see something work again and again and again. For example, if I press the power key on my computer, I'm sure that it's going to turn on. So to be confident in yourself and to be sure in yourself, you just need to practice whatever you want that confidence in again and again until you believe in it. For example, if you need some social confidence, you practice talking to people again and again and again until at some point you just start looking at yourself as a social person. This next question is actually really fun, which is celebrity crush growing up. It's kind of hard to choose because I was the type of person who would have a lot of celebrity crushes, but one of the biggest ones was definitely Austin Butler, especially when he had blonde hair in like 2013-ish. Dylan O'Brien, but when he was in Teen Wolf, I was honestly so obsessed with him. Another one that was a little more recent was Louis Partridge, I think. And then if you guys go to like my movie reaction channel, you guys can see that I've also been pretty obsessed with Marcus from Ginny and Georgia, and also Tristan from Gilmore Girls. And this is actually like a really curious question. Let me know who yours is in the comments. Okay, the next question says, what fictional character do you relate to the most? There are a bunch of them, and they're kind of are like on the opposite sides of like girlhood spectrum. First one is for sure Elle from Legally Blonde and Poppy Moore from Wild Child. I loved those characters because they were always girly, but they were not the typical like mean girl, and they were actually smart and caring, which I felt like I can relate to a lot. And then there's definitely Effie Stoneham and Harley Quinn. Do I have a split personality? I don't know. Okay, the next question is college or school? I feel like both of them I've really had a lot of fun times in. I honestly wouldn't be able to choose. High school I feel like has such a cool aesthetic to it. College, I actually went to a European university. European university is so cool because you have the whole like European setting and it's so aesthetic and you can travel a lot. It was such a fun experience getting to live on your own for the first time, go out with people, get to know a lot of people, go on a lot of dates where you don't really have to ask your parents like, hey, can I go out on this day with like this guy? Going to clubs, traveling with your friends, being able to just go one floor downstairs and be in your friend's room. That was definitely really fun. But then like school has a different aesthetic and it's kind of like more exciting when you have crushes, and it's a little more cute with like the lockers and everything. And I've also been to a college in California, which was absolutely incredible. So basically they're all really fun. I really don't think that I can choose between them. How and where to make friends outside of school? This one really depends on where you are, but what I would say, if you can join some kind of activities and clubs. I know that there are, for example, dance schools and dance classes, or maybe you can take an art class that is not related to your high school. You know how there are like certain events like paint nights and stuff like that? Going to those can be a really fun way to meet people as well. Parties also, but that really depends on your age. I know a bunch of times where I've gone to a party and I've met so many new people there. Also, you could try going to the bookstore or coffee shop or the gym actually, and at some point, like, I know people there don't like to be disturbed, walking up to someone, giving them a compliment, maybe complimenting their gym set or something, and then being like, hey, could I maybe get your Instagram if you would want to hang out sometime? What's your favorite food, color, or animal? My favorite food is probably pizza. My favorite colors are pink, purple, and black, and my favorite animal is a wolf. And the second part of the question is, when did you meet your boyfriend, if you're okay with sharing? We met on November 11, I think, or November 9, 2023. It was actually a funny story. We actually lived in the same dorm when I went to university, but we never really crossed paths. And then when I was moving to a different dorm the next year, he was also moving to that same different dorm, and that's pretty much when we met. When we moved into the other dorm, we would constantly like run into each other on the stairs, and I kind of liked him, but then I found out that he had a girlfriend, so I was like, okay, never mind, goodbye. And then like fast forward 1 year, I actually met him at a dorm party and we talked a lot, and the next day he asked me out. So that's pretty much how we met, and I'm really sweaty and tired right now, so I'm gonna end this video here. I don't know if I got to all of the questions. If I forgot any of the questions, I might make a part 2. Let me know if you guys would want a part 2 of the Q&A, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!